Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Our Enemy podcast. I'm Fate Steel Taylor, and today I am joined by Sean the Blue King 807. How you doing, Shaw?
I'm great. How are you
I'm
doing? Fate Steel Liz?
Oh,
No,
Fate,
it doesn't work as much.
Fate Liz Taylor?
Fate Liz Taylor. That sounds like a legitimate
It does.
name.
It sounds a lot more legitimate than my actual name.
No, but you gotta include the steel part
I
in
do.
it.
So, Liz and the Steelbird. Ooh, that's like a gritty noir
ooh.
take.
Ooh, I like it.
I like it a lot. But you know what I also like a lot? Liz and the Bluebird, as produced and distributed by 11 Arts Studios in North America, specifically Canada and the US. So, in case you didn't know, because you didn't read the title of this episode, or you just stumbled upon it, we are talking about Liz and Bluebird, the latest film by Yamada Naoko from Kyoto Animation. We actually talked about this in our part 1 of the movie. A little bit more about Yamada Naoko's background, a little bit about what we were anticipating with Listen to Bluebird. The link to that is somewhere. We could probably put it on the video. We could probably put it on my face, probably in the description. You can find it. It's easy. The internet is forever. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. And this is going to be pretty spoiler intensive, I want to say. So only watch this if you've watched Listen to Bluebird, because my goodness, did I love this movie. It's one of those movies that I'm really glad I saw in theaters, and I'm really glad that it came out at a period of time where we could see it in theaters, right? Like K-On! The movie, Tamako Love Story, I couldn't see in theaters. Like I couldn't have even seen it at the cinema, Village East Cinema in New York City, where we've gone to, with the black bar in front of the screen.
The black bar was not a problem for me this time.
Oh, nice.
I hope it wasn't for you this time.
I was in the bottom auditorium this time, like in the basement. That's where I saw the Fate Heaven's Feel movie. So I didn't get the bar this time that we got with Kizumonogatari and Asylum Voice.
Yeah, I was in the top part, but I was in the bottom section of the top part. So that was interesting. I was kind of at a weird angle, but I got used to it pretty quickly.
Very nice. Yeah. So, Shaw, how did you like going to see the movie? Because I remember you said you went to see it with your boyfriend. How was it? And he hasn't seen a lot of anime. He's been trying to watch FMAB for 3 years now.
Yeah, it's been an interesting struggle. He actually just finished Death Note, which is not his first anime, but he the first one he really loved was Kill la Kill. Then he really loved Made in Abyss, and now Death Note has been his next favorite. That's been really solid. So, but as I have told him multiple times that he does not have good taste. So now I was really interested to see that not because of the anime that he likes, because of live action movies he likes. He has good taste with those. But, so I dragged him to go see Liz and the Bluebird in theaters, and he hasn't seen Hibike Euphonium, so I don't think he knew anything about the movie. He didn't really know any context, so, he had no idea what to expect. I knew what to expect, but it was pretty interesting, because I don't think it was for him, because I don't think that that storytelling is really his style. But I had a really fun experience. I think it was really cool to see in theaters. But I think we kind of anticipated this in the first podcast, which I don't know if we explicitly said, but you're a much bigger fan of Yamada, and I think I appreciate her more after hearing about how much she's impacted you. Whereas I happen to be in the camp of I like a lot of what Yamada has done, but I'm not necessarily really captivated by her as a director. I just appreciate what she does. Right. And so, for the original Hibike Euphonium series, it's one of your all-time favorites. And for me, it's one of the shows I really enjoy, and I really love certain aspects, but it's not necessarily a favorite for me. So I think I kind of had an experience that kind of matched this. I thought the movie was really decent. It had some really great parts, and then it had some parts that I found I was bothered by, but I wouldn't really call any of them bad parts. There wasn't there were certain bad parts. It was just not something that clicked as much for me as I think did for you and everyone online, because everyone online is really loving it.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Yeah. I very much hate spoilers, and I think we talked about this before on part 1, but I was I did not watch a single trailer for this. I barely saw any of the promotional material. When I was in Japan, actually, and I went to the KyoAni shop, I had the chance to buy so much Liz and the Bluebird materials, but I was so nervous that it would sway how I felt, because if you buy something related to an anime that you haven't seen, you kind of feel you're forced to like it in a sense.
Yeah. It gives you that expectation that, like, you have investment in this now, and you kind of want it to live up to that initial investment and expectation.
Right. And I was really nervous with this film because I was like, dang, how do you follow up on a Silent Voice? Because, like, Silent Voice is my favorite anime of all time.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of that as well. It's one of 2 anime films I've given it 10. And it was I'm a huge fan of it. I loved it. I think I've seen it more than any other anime film.
Yeah.
And Ty, my boyfriend, liked it. So it was like, so it somehow has, and I'll call him like the normiest of normies. Like, it had that appeal for someone who's not a big anime watcher. So I feel like that also adds like another value to it that I enjoy, that I can say like, hey, anyone can watch this. But sorry, you were saying.
Oh, no. So like, and I think that's exactly right, because when you do have like such a huge hit like that, it's almost like you're kind of nervous about what comes next, because you're like, how do you match that success? Like, I'm really nervous about Shinkai's next film. Like, what's he gonna do after Your Name?
I'm not too nervous. Just gonna.
Shao, we've talked about your feelings on Your Name before.
No, I'm never. Yeah, we will not bring up the Your Name.
This is a Yamada podcast.
I will anticipate anything Shinkai makes in the future with positive anticipation. I don't even know how to say it. I will welcome it with open arms.
And like with Hosoda, after Wolf Children, when Beast and the Boy came out, I was like, do I really want to watch this? Like, is this gonna be still good? Like, how much, right? And with Con, I still have that worry, because after seeing, I've stopped with Millennium Actress, because to me, it's like, I don't want to watch films afterwards, because I'm like, how can Con top this? And so with Yamada, with this, I was just like, dang, like, Hibiki Euphonium of the Yamada directed works is probably my least favorite. Again, as you mentioned, it's probably in my top 25 series on its own sound, Euphonium. So I still very much like it, but like, there's Tamako, K-On!, A Silent Voice, which are all firmly in my top 10.
Yeah.
And then like Hibiki Euphonium, like, lower down the tiers. So with this movie, I was really nervous, and I didn't want to talk about it much, but I was. And just going into it, I know we joked about how, like, if I saw this movie at like KyoAni Studio, I would like cry the entire time on the plane.
I didn't think we were joking about that. I think we were like quite serious.
I thought we were joking, so maybe I just missed the memo, because you were right, I was wrong. I was like, there were so many times throughout this film where I just like found myself tearing up, and like by the end I was just like openly sobbing. I felt so uncomfortable, because I was like, I wanted to bring my roommate Gil, who's been on the podcast before, a great guy who hasn't seen Hibiki Euphonium or Sound Euphonium.
That would be an interesting experiment, because I trust his taste on something like this more than Ty's.
I also figured he would really like this, because he's out and he's in.
Yeah, the subject matter is really cool, because I think a lot of members of the LGBT community in the anime sphere have really enjoyed it. And I think that's really cool on its own, because, you know, like, I'm straight, but like, really respect and admire the LGBT community. I'm really glad that this came out, especially when there are so many anime that come out, you know, even within this year, and they're kind of like, you know, you got like Citrus.
Oh God.
You have Citrus, which is like, you know, it's not the same. It's really not the same. Like, Citrus is something that I would consider like an exploitative work that doesn't really capture like a lesbian relationship in a really positive light. And I think it is kind of like perpetuating the problem. And like most recently this season, we have, I'm not even going to say it correctly, but it's there's this yaoi show it's called, like, it's like the sexiest man of the year who I want to hug. It's some weird crap. But like, you know, you watch it and like the whole thing is just this really weird rapey show, and you're like, why don't they have good representation? Like, why don't you just have like a normal romance, but that just happens to feature homosexual feelings? And then I feel like we watch this and I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, they finally got it.
Yeah. So like, Gil and I had just seen Madoka Magica Rebellion, and also we rewatched Evangelion 3.33 like back to back. So I was already in the mindset of like watching devastatingly beautiful gay anime films. like, especially to me, like, I feel like it's been getting to see him go through anime and watching it with his boyfriend and like seeing just how represented the LGBT community is in anime. Because we were talking actually, and he was like, what's the least gay show we've seen? And we just like looked at each other for a bit and we were like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Right? Because like,
yeah, I was trying to think of it while you said that. I'm like I was gonna try and say like JoJo because it's manly, but even JoJo is ridiculous.
JoJo is like fabulous. Like
very gay, like big gay.
I was gonna say like maybe I'll know a Zero, but like there was some Inaho slaying action going on at some points.
Yeah, they always have something. There's always some weird tension, like same-sex tension in like most shows at some point.
Well, ton of sports anime, like we love Free.
Oh, the biggest gays, the hugest of gays.
So like, but it's different, right? Because with Yamada, she's always. It felt like it was with Liz. It was taking, and this was something I talked over with Yuzora, who's a good friend of ours, listener of the podcast, also a huge Yamada stan, does fantastic essays on Yamada Naoko and her shows. You can check those out on RI Anime. But we're talking about it was like how this was kind of the culmination of all the work she had put in previous shows, because she kind of disintegrated the Yuri aspects, the quote-unquote Yuri aspects of K-On! That were meant to be exploitive in the manga, that she turned into like wholesome friendship feelings by making a ton of it anime original. And then in Tamako, like Midori's characterization is just, I like having talked to friends of mine who are out, who did struggle with closeted feelings in high school, like they said it was just such a realistic and like moving representation of that feeling with Midori. And so we get that, and then with Sound Euphonium, with Reina and Kumiko, like
which is admittedly a kind of contentious relationship, especially with some of the developments in season 2 with like the crush on the teacher kind of thing. Like it's contentious because it's you could definitely see it going both ways.
It's not explicit.
Yeah.
And it's like even if it's implied, it's like it straddles the line.
Yeah, I was never sure how much of it is kind of like, this person has come into my life and they've really inspired me and I really admire them and I almost look at them in an idealistic way versus like, this is romantic feelings.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure if the show knows either. Right.
Whereas with Liz, like, it is very clear, like, a couple minutes in.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as they do the Daisuke no hug, the love hug.
Oh, those were so cute. Those were so adorable, where you just see her being like holding her arms out, and she's like, "Can we hug?" And she's like, "That was so cute."
No. Oh, the first time when she does that, I believe it's Mizore who does that, and she like holds open her arms, and then she's like, "Just kidding," and then turns around, and the entire theater was like,
"Oh, that's so cute."
No, because like she wanted to do the Daisuke hug, but then like rejected her by saying like, "Just kidding."
Can you imagine someone like, real talk, when someone like opens their arms out for a hug? I think I'm thinking of the second one.
Oh, the second one.
Yeah, because I think the first one was like Nozomi, and then she says just kidding. But the second one was Mizori. Right,
Mizore. Yeah, she holds open her on. Yeah, Nozomi, Mizore, Nozomi. Yeah. Anyway, Obo girl.
Nozomi is the Obo girl. Yeah, her name is Mizori. She opens her arms up for the hug in the second one.
And Nozomi doesn't.
And then Nozomi is like, maybe next time. Yeah. Can you imagine being like, yo, like, maybe next time for your hug? And I know in Japan it's a lot different because I think, like physical contact is a lot different. In America, we would just give each other a hug and move on. Even if, like, people didn't want to hug each other, they'd just kind of do it. But in Japan, like, I think it's, it's a much bigger deal. So something like, maybe next time is probably not as awkward, but still the connotation of like you're rejecting their hug, like you're going out of your way to reject their hug.
I actually thought that was supposed to be really awkward and really terrible, even with the context, because like it's it's Nozomi knowing that what Mizore is going for and still rejecting her. Yeah, like, oh man, that hurt so much. It was just like.
Ooh. There were some brutal oofs. Like not a narrative oof, but just like emotional oof.
Like like so many times where like Mizore just like you see her struggling to convey her feelings to Nozomi and like express how important Nozomi is to her. Yeah. And I was just like, oh my god, I was sobbing so many times. It was just like, and for me, because I have been and like kind of I've been studying a lot more on cinematography and directing in the past couple of years. I've done starting doing the MIT course that's available online with the syllabus and talking about cinematography and the history of cinema. And for me, just like from the opening cuts, I was just like, this is brilliant. Like this is like, just from a purely technical standpoint, this is just really well shot, really, really well storyboarded, directed. Like there's just so much emotion of like being evoked.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I feel like Yamada, and she put it in display, of course, in a silent voice, you know, title notwithstanding, although it's technically the shape of voice in the actual Japanese. But she does a good job of making scenes where there's not dialogue, but there's so much being said, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of, and I think those scenes are actually, like, ridiculously difficult to pull off. They're actually so tough to kind of convey the words that the characters want to express without actually expressing them. And I think that's something that I've found to be very hit or miss in, like, a lot of other TV series and anime movies, and it's something that I do think works out really well in Liz and in A Silent Voice, where they do such a great job of, I'd say, the visual storytelling and visual characterization of many of the characters, that we know what they want to say. We know how they feel. Especially the character animation in this was, like, ridiculous.
Yeah, the character acting was crazy. And, like, we really kind of saw it in, beginning in K-On! Season 2. Because the opening scene of K-On! Season 2 is, like, 2 minutes and change of no dialogue whatsoever. Just Yui jamming on her guitar as the girls come to school. But like it recaps the entire season and their friendship in that exchange. And there were a lot of moments here where it's Nozomi walking and Mizori behind her and just like walking slightly out of sync with each other, and like a lot of leg shots. We did warn everyone that there would be a lot of leg shots.
We've been new though. Like we knew that the leg shots would be prominent.
But like she conveyed so much with those, and you really understand why she does it, because she is able to express so much without showing people's faces.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think it's also like kind of like referencing back to the K-On! Point. You know, I love K-On! I think that's a great opening for season 2, but I'd say this is almost more impressive because there's a lot less action going on. You know, you mentioned that they have like Mizori walking behind Nozomi, and I think there's a lot less dramatic, dynamic action going on. So the fact that they're able to communicate so much about their relationship and their current feelings with fewer action is like really, really impressive. So I definitely enjoyed a lot of that. A lot of the subtleties that was communicated through cinematography, character animation. Yeah, like the soundtrack.
Oh my god, the soundtrack might be one of the best I've ever heard.
Yeah. That's actually my favorite anime composer for this film. It's let me see if I can nail his name. Kensuke
Yes,
Yoshio?
he also did Silent Voice.
He did A Silent Voice, Ping Pong the Animation, Devilman Crybaby. He did a lot of different types of soundtracks. So when I saw him, I was excited, but I also was kind of nervous because I think back to the Ping Pong and Devilman Crybaby soundtracks, and they're very like electronic and like, you know, they're not orchestral, you know. And this is, you know, like following a concert band, like you have to have like orchestral music, and he did a really great job. Like I don't think you'd be able to tell like, yeah, this is the same guy who did the Devilman soundtrack.
And you would be able to tell kind of that it's the same guy who did the Silent Voice.
Yeah, definitely more so that. Yeah.
I feel like they go so well hand in hand, because like he does like the kind of like, it sounds like a note being played in reverse, like a rewind sound when there's like no dialogue, and it just kind of like, it makes you feel so uneasy.
Yeah. Yeah, but like in like everyday uneasiness, not the
like thriller horror kind
is,
of just like
not like the world is tearing itself apart, just like the everyday emotional uneasiness of like you felt like you should have said something and didn't, or you feel like something awkward was said but it's not really overt. Like the really small things that are easy to kind of forget but are really noticeable in this movie.
Yeah, it was. So I love the soundtrack. There's a solo duet at the end with the oboe and the flute that in the title of the composition Listen Bluebird, which is where the film gets its name from, where I felt like they really nailed. I mean, the oboe just sounded phenomenal, first of all. Like that was so crazy.
Yeah, I think hopefully people watched our first episode, but I think they know that like we were both in concert bands. We both played like pretty seriously. You probably played more seriously than I did. But so like I was really looking forward to the actual like music set part of this, and one of my favorite parts of the first season of UPK Euphonium is when they have the two trumpet players battling out for the solo. And I found out recently, I'm not sure if you told me this or someone else did, that when they were recording the trumpet part, for Reina, who's supposed to be portrayed as like the much more talented, hardworking soloist compared to the senior, who was very good, but the only reason she was really getting humored was because she was a senior and Reina was a freshman. And for Reina, they cast a professional trumpet player, and then for the senior, they cast a college trumpet major. And the way you can, and I think it might be kind of tough, but at least for me, because I've had to hear trumpet blaring for like since I was in fourth grade. I'm not salty about it.
Of course not.
But you can pick up the really subtle differences in the quality of how they're playing. The musical phrasing, the breathing, the sound quality, the way they go between notes, the emotional way they communicate themselves through music. These are, things that are really tough to describe, but you can just really feel them when you hear them playing music. And that was something that they really brought back for this movie, for that final solo, where you can just hear Mizore playing her heart out. It's like the most beautiful oboe you've heard in your life. Like, it's the most beautiful oboe. And Nozomi is just, doing a decent job. She's playing the notes well.
But you can hear her, like, they did such a good job of, like, doing a crying flute sound with, like, the shorter breath, the unable to play the notes aspect of it.
Yeah, and she can't keep up. Like, she really just can't keep up. And it's not even her fault, per se. Like, she's crying, but you could tell even outside of that, she just doesn't have the talent or natural skill to keep up with Mizore. Right. And you can tell. And that was on full display in that moment. And they did such a great job of showing that, Just, that was just, like, the emotional conflict of the movie was portrayed beautifully through this solo between these two players.
Yeah, it was... For me, just listening to the oboe part, like, for some reason, I mean, I know the reason, I was on, like, an oboe kick leading up to this film, and so I was listening to, like, the oboe, like, for some reason I had the oboe solo in the Polovtsian dances, I can't remember how to pronounce, but, like, listening to that, I was just, like, really in an oboe vibe, and just, like, here, because, like, same with me, like, I almost went to school for trumpet performance, for college, and like I grew up
so emphasis on the took it more seriously than me part, like huge emphasis,
and like my mom has a master's in music composition and music education. And so like I grew up with music theory my entire life, so like especially in the trumpet scene you mentioned before, like especially being a trumpet player, like I could instantly tell like there was a huge difference in skill and experience between Reina and Kaoru senpai in the audition, and then here because, like, with the like, you play in enough orchestras, you play in...
My mom actually played the flute, and she almost got her degree in music composition and performance as well. So, my mom was helping me when I played the clarinet, that she, like, helped me, like, when I was learning, and I've heard her play flute, and then, I've heard, a lot of flute. I've actually heard a lot of flute, clarinet, and oboe, because I actually always wanted to play the oboe, but that's a dramatic story for another day. No reliving my trauma now.
But in essence, like we're both very familiar with what good woodwinds are supposed to sound like, and also more importantly, what good high school tier woodwinds sound like, and that's what was realistic. And also like with a lot of anime, like they can't even sync up lips with the acting.
They barely have sounds, and here
like,
we are with like these expressive performances that communicate like ability, emotional maturity, and just like technique.
Right, and like,
you know.
So I don't really know how to play the oboe or like flute, like woodwinds. I don't know the fingering at all, but I can. I've played euphonium. I've played trumpet, and like when they did the Reina Kumiko solo or duet, when the two of them play it in the courtyard. First of all, like I thought that was great, and it was like very them, and so it was a nice callback to season 1 and 2. And I loved how they mentioned like how Reina's solo sounded like a very aggressive list.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And like you can hear that, and I was just like, but you can follow the fingering along, and I'm like, that's right. Like they nailed that. Looks so realistic.
Yeah, it looks like a big thing too is with the oboe. Oboe is actually they always do, you know, Band Geeks, we're always trying to figure out who has the hardest instrument. You know, we've always been like the battle, like, well, who has the hardest? Because, you know, like brass players only have 3 keys, but then they have different, like, you know,
embouchure,
different ways that
right.
Embouchure, then, like, you know, clarinets, flutes, all the woodwinds. Well, we have so many, you know, the battle rages on. But I do think that I remember hearing that, like, between French horn and oboe
exactly
are the 2 hardest. And something that always stuck out to me is with the oboe. I think at some point, maybe it's on the back of the oboe, but where they use the left thumb, I think they have something where that you cover half of the hole. And that just seems so impossible to me.
You have to adjust.
You have to play a lot of, that just seems like, oh my gosh, no. I think we had to do that with recorder back in 3rd grade, and I was like, I don't want to do this then, let alone for like this full-fledged instrument where you're playing so many quick notes and you have to have such a full sound. Like, how do you cover half of the whole?
Right, and like if you're off by a little bit, it's too sharp or too flat. It's the same reason why the French horn is so different, because with the left hand inside the bell of the horn, like you have to adjust the pitch of it as the concert goes on, as your instrument warms up, and the tuning of the instrument slightly changes. You have to change the tuning of your hand as well, which is, but like musicality aside, they were
I feel like I don't know if we bored everyone with our band talk.
But like that just goes to show, like I completely bought into like how good this was, and especially because I did have friends who were thinking about going to music school when the one teacher is, when Nozomi is talking and she's like, oh, like I think I might go to a music school, and the other teacher's like, oh, well, if you have any questions, let me know. Oh
my god, that was brutal. Yeah, I've had, there's so many, one of my best friends went to music school, and it was kind of like, she was, you know, it hurts to say, but you know when you're good but not good enough, so it's kind of like, how long are you going to perpetuate the idea that you can make it professionally in such a competitive field? And that was, you know, you could tell that was something that Nozomi was really, you know, I think she really wanted to do it, but you could tell that she knew that she didn't have it in her. And it was kind of like, when does she come to terms with the fact that she knows that she cannot keep up with Missouri? Like, and she knows that, like, I think she does know. I forget how detailed they were about.
She mentions that, like, it almost seems like she's hedging her bet. It almost seems like she's hedging her bets when she talks about, like, oh, she's in that like the instrument room, and she's like sitting down with Sleepy Senpai and Yuko. I know it's Natsuki Senpai, but I like calling her Sleepy Senpai. She's Sleepy Senpai.
Sleepy Ponytail Senpai. We know that's her
official name. She legally got her name changed to Sleepy Senpai. But they were talking, and she was saying, like, oh, like, I think I'll apply because Missouri is applying, but, like, I don't know if I'd want to do it professionally. I don't think, like, would I want to do this for the rest of my life? Maybe I just want to go to a regular college.
Yeah.
So, it was just so much about this film. And I think it was also captured in Tamako Love Story. Like, Tamako Market has a talking overweight bird.
Very relatable.
And like fantastical elements. But like Tamako Love Story is like really grounded, very realistic, and it just like captures the essence of adolescence at that time and like applying to college and going through that. With Sound Euphonium, I thought some aspects were a little melodramatic, especially in second season.
Yeah.
I think it ramped up a little too much sometimes, but I still think like it was very beautifully well done. But with here, there was just like so much of it just like felt like I could imagine these characters in real life. Like two people out there in the world having this conversation would not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate depiction of it. I think they felt like very real people, and I don't actually know if we've touched upon this as much, but the way it actually ties into the Liz and the Bluebird storybook. Yes. I think I was kind of nervous when I was starting the movie because I wasn't sure how much they were going to do with the storybook. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted them to, you know, really feature the storybook because I knew it would be an allegory for their relationship. We knew. We already knew. But I was like, I don't know how much I want them to just, like, have, like, this literal bird and, like, Liz. And, like, you know, I don't know. And I think they utilized it the perfect amount. I'm going to say, like, they didn't go too much, but they didn't feature it so little that it felt irrelevant. You know, they did a good amount of it. And I'm not sure if I'm jumping the gun, but I think I have to say my favorite part of the film is when you realize that, well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but my favorite part is we've thought of Liz as Mizore from the beginning. You know, I think the anticipation is like...
She's the lowly one. She's the one who has a fear of abandonment.
Yeah. She's Liz, and then she happens to find someone, you know, like makes her life less lonely in Nozomi, and then they're having a great time, and then we already know from the beginning that they're going to separate in some form. We don't know what that means, but we know that they will separate. But then when you realize that Nozomi was Liz and Mizore was the Bluebird, that was just such a beautifully done twist. Like, they played with our expectations so perfectly, and then they switched it at such a perfect time that I was like, this is really well done. Like, this is so perfect. It's almost like a plot twist. I wouldn't even call it a plot twist, but it kind of feels like one. That I was just, like, so blown away, and I really loved that. I was kind of iffy on afterwards where they kind of, like, explicitly said it. Like, that kind of bothered me because I loved how much they showed it, and I kind of wish they just, like, let us see that and then moved on.
Yeah, that is the one thing where I was like... Because it was also a thing I felt like with... that worked well in Tamako Love Story was how much was left unsaid. And with the silent voice when they're on the bridge scene after that incident, and, like, they run up to each other and they, like, talk it out, I was like... A lot of it is being, like, explicitly said, and it was like so much was well done with things that were implicitly said before.
Yeah.
Where I was like,
and it was such a type of movie where it was like such a show not telling.
Right.
Like the entire movie was show
the last scene. So I
was like, why are you picking this one?
The last scene is like the biggest show not tell scene, like in the film too.
Yeah. What do you think of the last scene? That's an interesting topic. Right. What do you think of that?
I mean, first of all, it's going to be up for discussion, right? Like, what did Nozomi turn around and say to Mizore? And, like, first of all, it's very important that, like, Nozomi turned around in the first place because the entire time she had never turned around to look at Mizore. And, like, we see this when they're in middle school. We see this when they're in high school. Nozomi goes forward. Mizore follows her. Nozomi never looks back. Yeah. But they go down the stairs. They have this conversation about, like, what they're going to have afterwards. Nozomi turns around, you see the look of shock on Mizore's face, and then it cuts to black. And then it started off with the disjoint, and Yamada kind of did that with Tamako Love Story too, and also with, whatchamacallit, A Silent Voice, where she has like a phrase at the beginning. Yeah. So Tamako Love Story was by always thinking onto them, which is what Isaac Newton said when people asked him how he came up with his theories, like the theory of gravity. Yeah. And with A Silent Voice, I believe it was something like a spot in the light, or like something to do with the light, and like looking through the light.
Yeah, I think they started. Yeah, I think they started A Silent Voice like that, where it was like light, and then so she always ties them back.
But this one was the first one where she brought it back at the end, with like this and then this joint, and then crossing out the distance saying joint, like. Because that's the thing with music, right? Like, you say, like, oh, these two things are out of sync, they're disjoint, but then they come back together. And the conductor, Taki-sensei, actually talks about it, how, like, there are overtones and notes that are being played that aren't on the page that happen when two melodies and two notes are played at the same time. That's, like, music theory. That's, like, sound waves and physics. And so, like... with that last scene, you see them get in sync, you see her turn around, and it cuts to black. And, like, to me, on the one hand, I felt like it was Yamada saying, this is something so personal between them that I can't show you. But also, does it matter that I show you?
Yeah.
So
I think that's a cool way of looking at it, yeah.
So, like, because it doesn't matter, because, like, she always does, right? Oh, sorry. She always does this stuff. She always does this stuff where she leaves up, like, open-ended stuff where she resolves the conflict and then ends it. Like, Tamako Love Story with a silent voice, resolved conflict. They're going to move forward. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but things will happen, but this chapter of their life is over.
Yeah.
So I think it was consistent with that, and I really loved it. I thought it was really beautifully done. I mean, I don't know. I'm running out of words to say. And, like, I don't know. Like, it was just so perfect for the two of them because Nozomi was always the one who spoke a lot. She said the most.
Yeah.
But this time, we don't get to hear what she says. So
that's a cool way of looking at it too, because she does do a lot of the talking. It's kind of interesting when you think about it, where a lot of the time Nozomi is talking, but the words she's saying don't really carry a lot of weight to them. They're kind of like filling the silence between the two of them. But then the one time when she's saying something that we're gonna assume has, well, we can, it has the most weight, and that's when she's silent.
Right.
And Mizuri is the only one who can hear her. That's a cool way of looking at it.
Thank you.
I think it's Yeah, good job, Faith. Nice. I think it's cool because I do love the conversation they have at the end. And I think, as you kind of said, we don't know what the future holds, but this chapter is closed for them. And I think when I think of something like Disjoint, and then I think about, how they're always walking and how Nozomi is always walking in front of Mizori, I think it's cool to think of, we don't know what their future holds, but they're going to see each other as equals now, instead of one being a leader and one being a follower.
And not holding the other captive.
Each other back. Yeah. Right. Or captive too, yeah. Back or captive.
Yeah. And also, real quick on the Listen Bluebird stuff, like, can we talk about the fact that, like, how, like, obviously we can't get into the budget, but how difficult it must have been to create two sets of character designs, one for Liz, like Liz and Bluebird storytelling aspect, and one for the actual, like, real life film, because it's not like in film where you can just cast actors and, like, whatever extras show up that day show up. Like, you have to design every character that shows up in that film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they had and they had so many, like, two different art styles. Like, it was a story within a story. It's really incredible how they managed to do that. I think, and it looked really gorgeous, and it was kind of cool when I look back at Kyoto Animation this year, and it's interesting how it kind of started off with Violet Evergarden, which I think looks gorgeous, but it was interesting to hear some parts of the community feel like it was almost, like, overproduced, which I don't agree with. But
it's like, this looks too good. This looks too good.
Well, it's, you know what I mean. Like, it's very detailed, very shiny, very, like, it's heavy-handed in its production values, and, like, there's a lot of weight to it. But then I look at it now, and it's like Yamada kind of did a 180, and she did this really clean, simplistic art style, but still just as beautiful.
Right.
I feel like Violet Evergarden, and, Yamada did not do Violet Evergarden. That's not her work. But when you think about Kyoto Animation, where Violet Evergarden is, let's say, aggressively telling you how good looking it is, this is just, subtly looking good and letting you know, like, hey, this looks pretty good, and it kind of lets you come to that conclusion on your own.
Yeah, like, there are times where I watched it with my roommate Gil, and we would be like, okay, you're just showing off now during Violet Evergarden. Like, the lake scene where, like, she jumps, and we're like, okay, like, this is amazing. Thanks for showing off how amazing you guys are.
Thanks for dabbing on us. Yeah.
But, I mean, it's gorgeous. It sounds gorgeous. The voice acting is spectacular. I really like Nao Toyama. Like, she hasn't had a lot of, like, serious roles. Like, she did Chitoge in Nizukoi, and she did Yui in Origairu.
She's one of those people that you've heard around a lot, but you haven't. But she's not a voice actress who comes to name really quickly. And like, you don't
really see her in serious roles.
Well, yeah, I guess you could see.
I guess Origairu kind of.
Origairu, like, I think I just started, I'm late to the party, but I started, Eurocamp, our favorite triangle camp.
Eurocamp Triangle.
And she's, Eurocamp Triangle. So she's, the main character, Rin. And I think it's really interesting to see how, I think her voice is actually very dynamic. Like, I think of Shitoge, which is like, very tsundere, and then Yui is like very different, and then Rin is very different, and now we have Nozomi is very different. Like, they all sound like very distinct roles, and I think she does a great job in all of them.
Yeah, it was great. Would highly recommend. If there might be still showings across the United States and Canada, so if you haven't seen it yet, or if you even have seen it, like, go see it again if you liked it. Like, I would go see it again if there were showings near my area. But instead, I'll just have to wait until my copy of the Blu-ray from Japan arrives in like December.
Did you actually already order it?
I already ordered it.
Oh my gosh.
The limited edition. Also, 11 Arts, if you want to make a Blu-ray of this, please, I will buy it.
Please, do it for Fate. He will buy 2 of them, because he'll have his Japanese one, and then he'll have
the English one.
The English release. It's a good thing you're not so fluent, but definitely fluent Japanese skills will come in handy for when the movie happens.
Oh, man. But yeah, until that time, we're just going to have to make do with everything that we have so far, which is still amazing. And like, I loved seeing it in theaters, and I'm going to miss it being in theaters. We also want to tell people that we had a very special giveaway going on for Liz and the Bluebird.
Yay!
Leading up to this. And we want to let people know that we did choose the winners. So, Shaw, would you like to do the honors, or should I?
Ooh, did you want to rotate?
Yeah.
I could do the first one. So, we went into probably like a Google Doc, and we randomly picked these people based on who retweeted our initial tweet, and then who followed the Tokyo Podfathers Twitter account and the 11 Arts Twitter account. So we picked from this group, and the winner of, I believe it's the poster.
Yes, the poster. So we have the actual theatrical poster that 11 Arts distributed to movie theaters across the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
And it looks gorgeous, and I'm very sad to part with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that Fate was like eyeing it up, and he's like, this is sad that I have to give this one away. But I can't think of a better, let's say, nickname on Twitter to give this to. The winner is user at DC Resistance, but their nickname on Twitter is I love Naoko Yamada so much.
It's real. It was fate. It was fate that brought them this poster. So DC, congratulations on the poster. I hope you treasure it. Because it looks awesome. And so the next one, and these two are postcards that were delivered to people who were at the theater, and a limited edition were given out. But the first person to get the postcards is user Ryu Senkei, who actually only has one tweet and is following like 11 people on Twitter. And that one tweet is the retweet for the Our Anime Podcast, and 2 of those 11 people are 11 Arts and the Our Anime Podcast. So, I mean, heck, we really appreciate the support if you like us that much.
Can you imagine your first tweet being the retweet of our of our Strike Up the Bands, like the Liz and the Bluebird episode?
I know.
Like, I think I've tweeted so much dumb stuff, and I'm at like 3,000. But I'm truly honored that even if he doesn't tweet beyond this, we were there first.
Hashtag my first tweet. And then would you like to announce the last winner?
Yeah, this was a cool twist of fate.
Hey.
The last winner, who also gets a postcard set, is Panda Avenger, who is a friend of the pod. He has been on the podcast before, and a very dear friend to both of us. And I know that he really loved the movie. I haven't talked to him yet, but I already know. So I'm excited that he will be getting a postcard set, and he knows where to find us because, we talk to him on a regular basis.
And where do we talk to him, Shaw? On a regular basis?
On where?
The Our Anime Podcast Discord, which anyone can join. We have the link below in the description of this podcast. You can always join us there. You can always join the discussion. We talk about anime. We talk about Liz and Bluebird. We talk about pretty much everything. We even have a JoJo Spoilers channel.
It's very important. Come in handy. Wish life had a JoJo spoiler channel. You can also tweet at us at Tokyo Podfathers.
Yeah.
If you just want to send us any tweet, even if we're not giving anything away, we'll tweet back. Maybe a GIF, maybe a meme.
Maybe a meme.
Who knows?
Maybe a gift meme. We also have...
Yeah, those are the best types of memes.
A lot of more things on the horizon, so be sure to follow us to be up to date on that. Subscribe to us on YouTube, on Simplecast, on iTunes. Be sure to check it out. I was Fate Steel Taylor. I'm still Fate Steel Taylor. I'm just going to become Fateless Taylor at this point.
Fateless Taylor.
This was Shaw Liz 807. Thank you again so much to 11 Arts for helping make this podcast a reality. And to all our viewers at home, thank you so much for listening. And as always, stay tuned.